Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new soft-spoken Wednesday in the Mystery Theory. Today, it's going to be a shorter video, just for a change, since last week I did a 5-part series on the Manson family. That is about 5 hours of a case. So if you missed it and you're in the mood, I'll have that linked on the top of the screen in the iCard and also in the description box down below. Now let me tell you, some people enjoy those series, and I feel like most people do that are subscribed to my channel. They're not as popular as people who are coming, from a recommendation from YouTube, but from you guys that are subscribed. Most of you enjoy those longer series. However, there are still some people that it is subscribed to the channel that enjoy shorter versions or shorter videos where they can hear they can get to the ending in one video. So for those of you, I decided to do a couple of shorter, maybe half an hour kind of videos this week and share with you some of the cases that I've been researching and very interested on recently. This one is an unsolved one, so you know that this has a piece of my heart, and I've been thinking about how, but I can't. I'm still empty. Now, this is a guy that vanished from a plane. You're probably thinking, you're crazy, that never happened. How can you vanish from a plane? You either go in the plane or you don't, but isn't a plane the safest place to, don't they know exactly who's on the plane? And, well, let me tell you the story. On November 24th of 1971, America was getting ready for Thanksgiving. And the airport, I don't care if this was 1971, it was extremely busy. It was also an airport that is in one of my favorite places, which is Portland, and this will become like a mystery in itself because of how bizarre the circumstances are around what is about to happen in this plane. Now, this was a Boeing 727, and that was traveling from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. And it was boarded by 36 passengers. Now, there was this guy who was noticed actually by people. He is in the passenger manifest. His name is Dan Cooper. And he was described as polite and calm. Well, that's good to know. Later on, he was renamed D.B. Cooper. Now, excuse me for not understanding this part, but I know this is a domestic flight, so you probably don't, you don't need a passport to go from Oregon to Washington State, but I'm assuming that he presented some kind of an ID. Maybe back then it wasn't what it is today. Anyways, the plane took off, and shortly after, a flight attendant informed the captain that there was a man claiming to have a bomb in his suitcase, and that he was going to use it unless he could get $200,000 in small bills. And he also wanted 4 parachutes. Unheard of. But listen to this. The FBI agrees on a remote landing strip, and this guy, Dan Cooper or DB Cooper, receives the money. They took pictures and everything, and in exchange for the money, the passengers were released. And the captain was given a detailed instructions of how to fly until this guy, Cooper, got off the plane. Now, he said, keep the plane under 10,000 feet with wing flaps at 15 degrees. He uses one of the parachutes, and at the minimum speed limit, he jumps and disappears without a trace. The plane landed, and they had like a huge search in the area. And of course, a new investigation started. They had an idea of the general area where he would have been at. They searched the plane, and to be honest, the only thing that they found was some fingerprints and a tie with a clip that belonged to this guy. Now, that wasn't enough to find him. That wasn't enough to know who he was, which sounds crazy to me, but maybe he used some kind of fake ID to board the plane, because now the FBI is looking for this guy. And really, at this point, they don't think, or they don't know, that Dan Cooper is his real name. In 1980, $10,000 in $20 bills were found in 3 different bags in the Columbia River. So if you are not familiar with the area, the Columbia River, by the way, it's beautiful. I've been a couple times, but the last time we went all along from the eastern part of Oregon to the coast. Well, not really to the coast. We actually made it to somewhere where we could cross to, I don't remember where, but to Washington State, to the western part of the state. And once we started to go along the Columbia River, it's beautiful, but it's not tiny, okay? So they couldn't find it at the time. Oh, by the way, Columbia River is what divides Washington State from Oregon. Literally, on one side it's Washington State, and on the north side is Washington State, on the south side it's Oregon. It's kind of interesting to go by and like, oh, look, on the other side it's Washington. Silly things that make me happy in this life. So they really didn't search specifically that area, but they believe that the bags could have drifted from, remember, this was years later, because the bags were found in 1980. Now, at that point, the FBI covered their faces and said, we don't think the guy survived the fall. But an interesting thing that they later on said is that they know that he tied the bags to his body. So how did they find the bags and not the money? Not the body? I mean, it's 30 years later, they still have a long list of suspects. But nothing that they can prove that it was that person. it's interesting to know that there was a lady later on that claimed that that guy, Dan Cooper, was her uncle. And let me tell you, there's a sketch of this guy. I'll have a link down below, so if you want to check it out. That's why I don't understand why there's a sketch of this guy. Because, again, the only thing that leads me to believe is that his name was not what he said his name was. So that's why they had a sketch. Because, hey, your name is John Smith. Your legal name is John Smith. They have your ID. Then they have a picture of you. If you have a driver's license, or if you have a passport, or if they really can match your face to the name. Anyways, that's why I don't think that was his real name, even though he got very well known. This case got very well known for the name D.B. Cooper. So, she said that, this lady said that she overheard a conversation between her dad and her uncle that was saying, the uncle was saying that he hijacked this plane and that he had lots of money. At least maybe talked about it. If she didn't see it, at least she heard him talking about it. Now, the FBI have not enough evidence to support any of these theories. What leads me to believe that maybe this guy really is not the uncle of this person that claims to be the niece. I don't think she's lying, but I don't think that he is the guy. She claims also that at the time that she overheard this conversation, she saw that her uncle was really hurt. I mean, he had bruises everywhere, so she assumed when the news broke and whatever years later, and this was years later, that she was probably the niece of this guy. But if this guy was really the uncle, I don't understand how they just couldn't make a connection. Maybe, if they did make a connection, they could have come and say, hey, it is this guy, but we can't find him. There's nothing really that would point back. And again, according to the FBI, there was a long list of suspects, but they couldn't prove anything. They didn't have enough evidence to support any of the theories. So the FBI decided to close this case as unresolved in 2016. Now the question is, did this guy survive this and get away with it? Did he get away with this? Is he even alive? Sometimes I wonder those things. I'm like, and nothing from this makes sense. Okay. The FBI decides to give in the money, which is unheard of. The FBI doesn't really negotiate, especially with terrorists. They're trained to the situation and how to deal with it. They are very capable in dealing with some of the most dangerous criminals. So the idea of the FBI giving him money, that sounded very, yeah, maybe it's something that they used to do, which I've never heard of before, but that was kind of unique to this case. Another thing is, this guy could have been a pilot. He said exactly how he wanted to fly the plane in order for him to safely jump out of the plane. He could have been. Do you think that maybe the pilot from the airplane had knew about this? It's just so many questions, and it's one of those unsolved mysteries that you're like, well, it doesn't make sense, and I guess it doesn't until it does. But I think that the FBI, if the FBI decided to give up after many years and call it unresolved, I think that they used every resource that they had for the longest time and still came out empty. What are the odds of hijacking a plane, getting money, and then disappearing and living happily ever after? I mean, your odds are against you. This is one of those stories that it's almost like a movie, and you're trying to make sense out of something that really doesn't make sense. So he not only is part of one of the craziest unsolved mysteries, but he's also kind of a very well-known character as Davy Cooper. What do you think happened to this guy? Do you think that he found a way to, I don't know, maybe he got help? Do you think that he survived and moved somewhere where nobody really... Do you think that he's from somewhere else? Why would he need money though? I've heard crazy stories that this guy was from another timeline, and that I'm like, or from another world, and just travel here through a black hole kind of thing. And I'm like, but why money though? Because he knew that he could get away with it? It just doesn't make sense. To me, anyways. So please, share your comments down below. I would love to know if you have a different theory. Again, it's either he survived or he died. But finding those $10,000 kind of point to the direction that the guy actually got out of either the water or wherever he was. Maybe he hid the money somewhere. So many things that could have happened. So, let me know what you think happened. Thank you so much for being here for another Soft Spoken Wednesday. I appreciate it, and I will see you back here on Friday. Bye, guys.